Hey y'all, Abec Arts here. Hope you're doing great. Caning to veneer basics. This video was brought around for mentoring purposes. Today, we're going to be making this veneer right here. It's a geometric pattern. And so all these pretty things that we have going on, it's gonna lend to this. Tools that we're gonna need: acrylic roller, blade, knitting needle. Having different sizes, good thing to have. Ruler, graph paper, and you can get this paper specifically at printablepaper.net. Again, printablepaper.net. I'll also put it in the words down below for the lower third. If you have things that are left over, you want to put packages that you can write on so that you know what blends they are or for what purposes they are. Deli sheets, especially when we go to assemble the veneer. Sheet protector. With the sheet protector, you're going to be cutting this end off and cutting the line over here so you can actually open it and close it to protect your clay. Baby wipes, wet naps, those types of things. Gotta clean everything, great. And then you want to pick your clay. Pasta machine if you have it. Go online, find a color wheel, print it off. This is gonna help you when it comes to blending. Now, if you're pretty good with colors, then you're not gonna really need that. So let's start with the colors I have here. I'm using a Soufflé and Primo mix. I like the Soufflé because it doesn't really stick to itself, which is nice. I like the Primo just because it's a little bit sturdy. Now that you basically have picked your colors, mine are a purple with a blush, a turquoise with a red, you're going to now blend them together. And there's a couple different ways of doing that. Okay, so one of the first ways of blending that I'm going to talk about is Cindy Lee's polymer clay tutor brought about the teardrop blending shape. And it's really something simple. So you'll take this, a ball, put it between your hands kind of like this, and rub it back and forth. You're gonna get a teardrop shape just by doing that. Super, super easy. And then with your contrasting color or complementing color or two-tone or monotone or whatever one you choose, you're gonna do the same thing. Roll a ball, then roll the teardrop. This second way of making a blend is brought to us by Judith Skinner. Instead of doing this really old style where we made a like 10 by 10 square and punched out colors 9 or 10 pure, then 9 plus 1, and then all the way down to the other side, she invented this to make it much easier for us. So basically, regardless if your clay is not perfectly rectangular, this will still work. So we're going to cut on a diagonal. After you make that diagonal, you're going to flip it over and make sure that they're even. Again, once it's cut, you're going to match it up and then press the air out from one end to the other to bring it together. Same with your second piece. Cut, flip it over, match it up. Now, you take this and bring it together like that to do a Judith Skinner blend. The thing with this that I like to do is offset it a bit. Now, I'll squish it, or I'll just cut it and then add that to another area. But that would be how you start a Judith Skinner blend. Third way is a staggered stack. So basically you'll take your colors and then cut them kind of equally, and you're gonna stagger them when you stack. Kind of like this. And then you're gonna, squish this down, because if you try to put something like this through an 1/8 of an inch hole on your pasta machine, it could tear it up or do some other interesting things. So anywho, that's the staggered stack. It's a little bit easier for me at this point. We're gonna go with the Judith Skinner blend. And like before, we're just gonna line this up and leave some of the pure purple and the pure blush or Mai Tai off to the sides. Now, you're going to squish this together, and you can do it in a couple different ways. I've seen some creators kind of push this way. I like to kind of brace it against my work surface and push down to make sure that they're kind of sticking together. Okay, and then if I don't have a pasta machine, what I will do is grab some popsicle sticks, and this equals about 1/8 inch for the pasta machine, which is the opening, and for those who do the metric system equivalent, it's 0.5 centimeters. So you would lay these next to your clay, and you would grab your roller and you would roll it out. One of the fundamental things here when you're doing this type of blend, one of the easiest things to actually help you for remembering on how to fold this is on each side you should see the same color when you fold it. So this side should be the purple against purple, the other side should be blush Mai Tai against that. If you fold it this way, you're just gonna create a new color completely, and you're not gonna end up with your gradient on the in-between here. So if you're laying it down using the acrylic roller, you're going to fold up and make sure that you have purple to purple, pink to pink. That's pretty much it. So what I'm gonna do, since I have a pasta machine and it's a little bit quicker, it takes about 15 passes through a pasta machine, maybe 20, 25 if you're doing it with the acrylic roller and popsicle sticks. I'm gonna use my pasta machine. So I'm gonna cut and come back in a minute. Now that we have our blend done, we can see the gradient from the Mai Tai blush all the way to the purple, dark purple. And it's really, really pretty. I really like this. But this is where we're gonna pull out our lovely little grid paper or graph paper. And we're gonna place this down because what we wanna do is cut it in half. That way we can make 2 separate rolls from this. And so we're basically at about 2.5, maybe 3.25 inches, somewhere in there. And we're going to follow this line that we have here, and we're just gonna cut it straight down. That way we have 2 equal pieces. Now with this, it makes it easier to work with something that's not super wide or super big canes. It's easier for manipulation. So we're gonna run this through the pasta machine to make it thinner and longer. But if you don't have a pasta machine to be able to do that, another trick is going back to your popsicle sticks, laying it down on either side of your blend, making sure you have enough room to be able to stretch it out, and you're going to use your acrylic roller to stretch it out. Once these don't work anymore, you're going to go to a single popsicle stick, and you're going to roll it out some more so that you get more length. Now something you can do next to that is get some cardstock. To get half of the width of this popsicle stick, you would have to fold this cardstock in half. But you're going to take this cardstock just like it is, and you're going to butt it up against your clay, and you're going to roll it out. You might have to tape these to the work surface so they don't move, but this will get you a thin enough blend for what we're going to do next. Take our half that we cut, and I'm gonna roll this through the pasta machine. I'm gonna start at 1 and then slowly go through them to get the length I need. I'm going to start with the darkest color first through the pasta machine. That way, if it picks up any kind of contamination, it's going to mainly be in the darker end instead of the lighter end in the hue values. So basically, I'm gonna move this to 1 and roll it through. 1 doesn't really stretch it out that far, so I'm gonna take it down to 3 now. Three has definitely increased it a bit, but that's not the width or the length that I want for what I'm going to do with it next. So I'm going to take this down to 4. I'm almost there. 1 more, 5. Okay, so now I have a pretty nice long piece to go ahead and roll up to make a cane. So what I'm going to do is start at my dark end and roll up to my light end. All right, so with the very end of our purple, I'm gonna roll it over a little bit. I'm going to grab my blade to release it from my work surface, and I'm just gonna start rolling it little by little over and making sure to push out from the center to the ends so that the air isn't trapped there. And then pretty much I'm just gonna start rolling as tight as I can. And if you notice that the ends are getting a little wonky, push them in. It's not a big deal. We're gonna move that down so we can make sure it's on the work surface. And again, we're just gonna roll it up. I feel like I'm doing fruit roll-ups here, just because they're as pretty as fruit roll-ups can be sometimes. Make sure you're pushing the ends in and just roll it up nice and tight. It's okay if it gets a little offset, because again, when we get to the end, we're just gonna push it down. Push it down and give it a little roll just to secure it. This is just a wrapped Skinner blend that you can make into a bullseye, which we're going to. Some people do call this a bullseye. Terminology is flexible. You don't have to worry about having it 100% because I call this a plug. I call this a bullseye. I call this a wrapped Skinner blend. It doesn't matter as long as what you're doing is the correct technique. Okay, so for this now, we want to wrap the bullseye or Skinner wraps that we made. For this, I'm going to use black. You can use gold, copper, white, whatever is eye-catching or pleasing to you. But for this one, I'm going to do the black because I like how it's going to look against these colors that I have. So I'm going to quickly just run this through my pasta machine to get it to the thinness I want, which that's pretty thin. It's not quite paper thin, but it's pretty thin. And again, the contamination that we have here from, you know, these previous clays, I'm not really worried about because it's going to go on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this one right now. I want to kind of set it here to know my length, and I'm going to cut off this end so it's pretty. Pull that away because I want it out of the way for when I'm doing get those out of the way for when I actually start rolling. So I'm not going to put it directly on this edge. I'm going to either start before or start behind that just because. It's going to grab it and pull it more so it stays together. But once we reduce this, then it has no choice. I'm going to move it forward, pushing out air, and I'm just going to roll Let me cut this little bit of extra again. Roll forward and then back, and this will have created a line in your clay. And what's really good here is to cut just behind the line so that when you roll this forward, it's going to even out or be exactly perfect to the other line, and then you're just going to blend it at that seam. You might need to take a little bit off. That's perfectly okay and easily done. There we go. Now we have a wrapped cane. We have our canes wrapped. We're going to start reducing. When you reduce, especially depending on the cane, you need to be careful of what design you have in the center or mosaic, because as you reduce certain ways, it can twist the inside, which then when you're making slices, if it's messed up the design on the inside, your slices will be bad. So bad, not really a good word to use, I guess, but you can find other ways to use them, but it won't turn out the way you intended. So rolling will actually cause the twisting. So what we're going to do here is start in the center, and we're going to push in and create kind of like a center girdle for this cane. It's going to give you kind of a belled shape, and you're going to continue doing that up one side and up the other, and that way you end up with this. Once you get to a certain point, you can roll it like once or twice to have a nice long decent sized even cane. And then if you find air bubbles, just slice at an angle and smooth them out. You might see them. It's kind of hard to see on black, especially on video, but for some of the other colors you will be able to see it a lot easier. Now a simple cane or simple veneer to do with a cane like this is just cutting really thin slices and then pushing them together, and you can square them off or leave them circular, and make a pretty decent veneer, as long as you have things matched up where the black is up against the black pretty decently and you don't have like cutout parts like this, which we're not going to use. These are going to be end caps that I use for Natasha beads or lentils or scrap where they'll be the inside of another bead. But so we're going to continue to reduce this cane, and one of the reasons why you want to start in the center and go out to the ends is to push any air bubbles or air that's trapped in here out, because you don't want them to leave like tiny little holes in your cane or your designs. It just takes away from it. Clean my hands up a bit here because the black is transferring. But okay, so we had this one, which we reduced a certain extent. Now we're going to get that out of the way. Then this one I reduced a little bit further. This is the one that has the red outside or inside to the blue. Then this one is the blue on the inside, red on the outside. So now that I have it to, these tiles are 12 inches or 30 centimeters long. I'm gonna lay it here, and so what, we're at about 15 inches. 38 centimeters roughly. We're going to take our graph paper again. I may have rolled this a little long, but that's okay. So for the veneer that we're going to be doing here, we're going to cut 6 1-inch lengths or 2 centimeters, 2.5 centimeters. That way we have something that's fairly equivalent. And we're going to do 6 1-inch lengths again. Okay, kind of doing like a reverse roll found out I could do this after I made a mistake one time over rolling a cane that had no design on the inside, and I needed it to be smaller. But anyway, back to cutting. So if you have your graph paper, it makes cutting extremely easy because literally you're just following these lines to have what you need in length. If you have leftover, that's fine. We can use it for something else later. So you need 6 of these, and so the end piece can go over there. Now we have 6. This is where your lovely knitting needle is going to come in handy as we actually take these small 1-inch 6 pieces into the beginning of your veneer. Okay, now that we have our 6 pieces cut and they're 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters, we're going to flatten them a little bit. We're going to stack them together and make sure to check that both ends align as we assemble. So our 6 pieces are together. And now we're going to start squishing them together. This is the image that we're trying to create with them. I'm going to go ahead and finish this off screen and be right back. Now that we've sufficiently squished this bad boy down to where it should be, we are now going to make it into a triangle. So basically we're just going to pull up on both the sides and squish it like that into a triangle. Super easy. You can squish your ends back in. Now that we have this into a pretty decent triangle, we're going to reduce it so that we can get 4 equal parts to make into our cane. Here we're going to reduce a triangle cane. It's pretty simple. You're going to keep it against the work surface, pinch down and pull out. Remember, you have your dominant and your non-dominant hand, so you want to take both and use it and flip it so that you're continuing to elongate it. You can flip it. And you're just going to keep pinching and pulling, turning, flipping. And you're going to do this until you get it long enough, which I'd say go about 4.5 inches, or let's get the centimeters right. So 11.5 centimeters roughly, if I have that measurement right. You'll get it that long. Test it on your sheet and make sure you can get 4 1-inch slices or 4 2.5 centimeter slices so that we can assemble the cane. I'm going to go ahead and reduce this and be right back. Welcome back. Okay, so I've cut off my cane ends just so we can see how well the inside looks. And the reason why I cut them off is basically the outside thins quicker, but it also doesn't always come up with the rest of the inside of the cane. So we end up with these crazy little divots or marks that aren't exactly what we need for this. So never get rid of scraps, cane ends. You can do so many things with them. Natasha beads and so much more. So just leave them there. Now we're going to cut this into our 4 equal parts. And if you need to get over top of it to see your lines better, do so, just so you know you have exactly 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. You can see how pretty that is. I really like the colors here with the purple and the blush. But now we're going to take it and we're going to do a couple things. With the pieces now that are cut, one of the things I like to do to turn this into the shape we need is on one of the edges, I'll push it against my work surface to kind of round it off by doing a rocking motion back and forth. Don't put too much down pressure on it because then you're going to squish your cane into something completely different. You just want to do enough that it rounds that edge off a little bit, which you can kind of see here, it's rounded off. And then you're just going to push it down a little bit that way. Much better. Now, you're going to take your needle, your knitting needle, and you're going to roll this up into the corner that we want to basically wrap around the knitting needle. So if you put it on your work surface, take the knitting needle and roll it up because we're trying to stretch that inner part. Roll it up into that corner and then wrap it. We're just wrapping it around. We're trying to make it look like a fan has opened up. And then you're going to do this for the other 3 parts of the cane and come back to show you how to assemble it. Now that we have all 4 pieces shaped the way that they need to be, we're going to assemble this. One of the important things that you need to know is this part here, where we have a lot of little dark lines where it's smished the most. That needs to stay towards the outside of the cane when we assemble. We need to make sure we also line this up really well. Make sure it matches on the other end. You can even push it down to make them equal if one is slightly longer than the other. And then you're going to do the other one. Making sure that this line, and if it's not long enough on this part, and sometimes that happens, you're just going to squish it towards you. Pull it and lengthen that part so it's longer to fit and butt up and align to the other cane. Alright, now here's the tricky part. So we have 2 diamonds basically, and we're going to take these 2 diamonds and turn them into a square. And so you have to fiddle with it a little bit. You don't want to push these together too much so that you can't get them apart as you try to adjust it to get it to fit into the square. So what I do is I find out which one fits better. Like that there fits a little bit better than trying this one or this one. So let's go back, make sure the other end is aligned. Now, we have to turn this into a square, and one of those things is kind of pushing and pulling and manipulating this piece to go with you. So while you're doing it, you're basically squishing down from the 2 sides, pushing in towards the center. You want to do that same on the other end. Make sure it lines up. Keep your fingers here on the diamond side, the apex, and you're going to squish down toward. Okay. And once you basically have it into your square shape, use your work surface to kind of give you some reinforcement as you're pushing it further into a square shape. And then from end to end, you can just push it down. And there is our design. I'll do a quick cut off of one of the ends here to show you. I just want to reduce it a little bit before I actually do that little bit of a cut off. That's our design. Before we make the veneer, we need to reduce this. And you can reduce it to any length you want to make your veneer. I'm gonna reduce it maybe to 3 inches, just because I don't want it too small, and then I'll be back. All right, now that we have this reduced to a lovely 3 inches, we're gonna start slicing it. And sometimes it's great to have the graph paper underneath and start cutting it straight down. When you do a cut, make sure you rotate. Some people don't, they'll just continue to cut, which will distort it. It'll make the bottom piece flare out and the top will stay nice and straight. So that's why we do that little bit of rotation. Okay, now I'm going to go without my grid, and I'm going to cut towards, and hopefully my head won't get too much in the way. But one of the good things is to start at the top and then look down at the side and make sure you stay even. And you're gonna just keep cutting until you've cut the entire cane, or you've cut as many pieces as you need to. You can do it fast, you can do it slow, it doesn't matter. But there is a trick to putting these pieces together. And as you can tell, if you look closely, my bottom's starting to distort because I kept pushing down. It's not huge, but if I kept doing it, you'd see a distortion. When you put your pieces together for the veneer, you will see a difference. So, all right, so when you're lining up these designs from one side to the other, you have to make sure that it's precise. So I'll butt it up against the other one and I'll check it. And if the design doesn't actually match what I have there, I'll keep moving it around until I get the appropriate designs next to each other. So once you get it together, once you get the appropriate designs kind of brought together, now you're going to stick them together, but just gently. You don't want to do too much with that. And that's so you have that. And then once you have that, you're going to put them on the paper and then start putting them together, making sure that your design matches up on each side that butts up against the new side. So I would take one of the ones I've cut and I'll look for where it matches design-wise. I have to rotate it. And once I have that, I'm going to butt it up against that and just gently put it on there. And you're going to do that until you get a sheet big enough to cover a light switch cover or an Altoids tin or a canvas, candle holder, incense burner. But anyway, there are many different ways to do veneers. This is just one. And I'm glad you stuck through all of this with me. And if it wasn't clear enough, please leave me comments or messages down below and I will be glad to help you out. Thanks a lot.